With that, did everybody get a chance to look at the motions? Do we have a motion from the floor to approve the minutes, or do we need to make some amendments?
Motion approved.
I have a motion to move. Do we have a second?
Second.
John's already got his hand raised, but thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Then the minutes from last month are approved. Let's just go ahead and start with police reports.
I've got a few dates of some events that are going on. April the 15th is we're having to do athlon that is going to take up the Wolf River extension. So the Wolf River extension we blocked off from
What day?
4:30 in the morning to, or 6 in the morning till noon.
15th
of April. And on the 28th of April is the drug take back
Yeah. Oh, crud.
from 10 to 2 with Kroger and Target.
I know I forgot something. We're going to need a sheet of paper for the sign up. Thank you.
You got some
The 29th of April is the color run for Germantown Municipal School District, and the Wolf River extension we blocked off from 4:30 that morning until about 6 at night. So well, that should conclude. Last year I think they had about 4,600 people.
Yeah. It's gotten bigger each year. This will be the third year, and I've worked it for the police department, and the first year was a really good turnout, and last year blew it away.
What kind of run is it?
What kind of run is it?
Color run.
Color? Basically,
The color
they run, and you throw a powder of color at them as they run past you. So at the end, when they're nice and sweaty, it kind of clays on. It's really gross. It's fun. Kids love it, though. And the fire.
What's the
The
date?
30th. I mean the 29th.
29th.
For the color run.
Yeah.
On the 30th, we are hosting a crime prevention forum for the HOAs.
Good.
They'll be here, it'll be in council chambers at 6 o'clock. So we've got all the presidents of the HOAs and the board members to come and join us. And we've got 28 kids already registered for Safety City, which is more than we've had this time last year. We have
How many multiples?
we've got 2 sets of twins already.
Are you serious?
Usually we average about 5 to 6 sets.
You're
But
serious?
you'll have to know the little blonde ones are not,
I'm
they're
very
not
happy
eligible to
with
come
that.
back.
Somebody will take their place.
They're too old now.
Do we know
God bless whoever has
how many
it.
6-year-olds we have that did it last year? Do we keep up with that? I'm just
I'd
curious.
have to go back and pull the
Let's
stuff.
go.
Most of them I can tell by returners when I redo it for the year. So far, this year, out of 28, we've got 4 that's returning.
4 returns? Okay. Because I know a couple of people who had kids in it last year that they loved it. And I say this all the time. My kid did it both years she was eligible. It is the greatest thing if you know anybody with a 5 or 6-year-old. So.
The reserve process is about wrapped up, and we've added some new reserves to the staff. And we just had an officer graduate from the Tennessee Law Enforcement Training Academy. So I think it was 501 hours or something like that.
We have 2 more there right now, so actually 3 more.
So
And
he's,
more in training now.
so he's out now with his
FTO.
FTO? Is that it?
Mhm.
Okay. Before we move to fire, I would like to go ahead and, do you mind addressing the conversation we had earlier?
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to talk about, first, thank you guys for letting me come and be part of your meeting tonight. I wanted to talk about the homeowner association meetings and the forum that we're going to have. This is, we had one of these for the hotels and the assisted living facilities about a month ago. I can't remember the exact date off the top of my head. But what we do is we obviously collect a lot of data. We see things that are going on, and we see trends and that kind of thing. But what we want to do is we want to get with the individuals, the businesses, and see what they perceive as their problems, see what they want in response. And that way it's a two-way communication, not just what we think they want, but we also see their end of it as well. We talk about a lot of different factors such as lighting, cameras, whatever we can do to try to help out to prevent any further crime. And you know, talking about numbers and statistics, again, we use those to determine trends and patterns, but they're always in a state of flux. And so if you try to say, well, we have X number of this, and last month we had a different number, and why does the numbers keep changing? One of the reasons when we report crime, we classify what we feel that crime is by statute. Well, then TIBERS, which is the Tennessee Bureau, they go through and they have a classification system as well. And occasionally we'll classify a crime as one thing because we feel it meets those elements. Well, they'll come back and they will reclassify it as something else. So that will change the numbers. Also, we work with the prosecutor's office. They're trained in law way more than we are, and if we feel that something is maybe a simple assault, they may bump it up to aggravated assault, or if we feel something was an aggravated assault, they may bump it to simple assault. That also makes the numbers change. So again, we try to see where we try to do the trends, like I said, is where we're having crime at, what kind of crime it is, so that we can address it in that regard. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions about how we collect the data or what we do with it? That kind of thing?
I think my only question was what prompted the conversation. Is this in response to the discussion that we had at our last meeting about wanting some additional statistics?
Yeah, I actually, yes, sir. I read that in the minutes that you had asked about that, and
because we haven't communicated. If everyone's wondering why I'm asking this question, well, we haven't communicated, so I wasn't aware of this, and so I'm asking what the purpose is.
Right, and so, like I said, I've never been to one of these public safety education committee meetings, so I asked Lieutenant McGee if I could get the minutes, and so I was trying to prepare and do my homework and be ready.
Well, thank you for being here. I do appreciate it. We would like some of the statistics. I understand that they will be changing, and we'll come to y'all before we release anything publicly that could give our citizens the impression that the police department is changing some method, patrol or something like that is causing different crimes to spike in the city, let's say. But I still think it's important for the commission to be able to take a look at some of that information. So if there's a way to do that, I would still like to do it. And I don't even know that you're saying that we can't or that it's not your plan to.
No, the individual reports, that we're probably not going to be able to do that. But as far as the numbers, we have a report that comes out monthly. It's our monthly report, and it has everything broken down by type of crime and how many we've had. And the other thing that we have is we have a list that goes out to the local news agencies on a weekly basis, what crimes we've had. That, obviously, it's but as far as if your home is burglarized, we're not going to put your report of what was taken from your home and all that kind of thing. Your personal information, what the address is, and that kind of thing.
I think what we're probably looking for is that not specific information about a particular home burglary, but that we had a series of burglaries in a particular neighborhood, for example, so that as a commission we can go back to the homeowners associations and say, here's what's going on, here's what they're targeting. If it's people leaving the key fobs in their cars, we say, can you send out a notice to the members of your HOA to take your key fobs out? I personally want to see this commission get more involved, have more responsibility if they choose to take it, and
In what
do
regard?
things.
In what regard are you saying more responsibility?
We're just in communicating with the public as part of our responsibility as the education commission.
Educating the
Yeah.
safety aspects,
Right.
but not as a crime overseeing commission. That's not our purview. Our purview is to help educate people on, which we have been doing, educating on better ways to keep their homes safe, things like that. I will agree with you on that. I think we're missing the focus though when we're saying more in-depth police reports. We already have access to those reports, as Inspector Keller has just pointed out. There's a monthly report that goes out. The media is notified of the crime that's going on in the city. I think the data that we've got is fine. What we need to do is focus more on ways to get information out into the public as far as ways to prevent those crimes. I said this at the last meeting. I've done this 15 years as a police reserve, and we've gone every year out to homeowners associations trying to tell people, shut your garage door when you're not at home. What happens? Nobody pays attention, and then they wonder why their lawnmower's not in their garage anymore. That's where we need to I think, spend the time, is figuring out strategies to get that education out. Not how do we get more information in, but how do we get the information out.
Well, my only suggestion would be that we make it a little bit easier for our commission members to get some of the information rather than having to search for it online. It's just a matter, I mean, like I said last time, even if you want to present the same information you're putting online, I think that's fine, but it would be something, be a topic of discussion each time we come in. Even if you're just handing a piece of paper, if Ed comes in, hands somebody a piece of paper, says, here's what's going on, it still gives us the data that we need in order to educate people, because right now the commission doesn't have the data that they need in order to educate people. Right? And so this topic of discussion tonight was not oversight, it was just purely education. So I think that, going forward, if we can make that happen, it would be great.
I think we could meet both ends pretty easily, and we're trying to find as many different venues or mechanisms to get the word out to, like what you're saying, to people, to let them know what's going on about locking your cars. Lieutenant McGee's been working on social media, other venues, and so any way we can get the word out to people and to help them be more safe, we want to do that. The only doubt, we just don't want to compromise anyone's personal information.
Ed's
Can I make a
doing
motion?
Great job.
Mr. Chairman? Can I move that the council discusses the alderman's suggestion about us taking in more specific crime data, that our council decides whether or not we want that data for the express purpose within our purview of improving our safety education outreach. In other words, is there more information that we need to do something different?
Can we hold that until new business?
Sure,
Because right now it's reports.
as I was.
I would like to compliment Ed on your emails that you send out to the neighborhood, whatever it's called.
Next door
What's
neighborhood.
it called? Next door, yeah. I think that's great. I really do. It's crazy how many people are on that.
Yeah, I think there's close to 12,000 people in it now.
Really?
And we would like to see, as soon as possible, at least get up to 15, and then start working from there, just to get more people on the Next Door app or on these types of systems. Where they have an account or not, they can at least monitor.
One of the things that Lieutenant McGee was talking to me today about was the e-notices that come from the city automatically. You sign up for that. And another thing, are y'all familiar with crimereports.com? So if you're not, you can go online, and we subscribe to it. The city pays for it. And so you go to that and you type in your zip code, and it's going to show you events around your area that have happened, calls, the type of calls that we've got. It's also going to tell you other things like, it's terrible as this sounds, any of your neighbors that may be on the sex offender list, it's going to tell you that. There's a lot of information that's on crimereports.com that may help out with some of your questions.
Thank you.
crimereports.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you sign up for the e-notice?
You go online, there's a short form, you fill
To
out
the
your
city
name.
website?
The city's website, yes, sir.
Thank you. Everybody get that?
Yes.
City website?
And one of the first things that we're going to put on there, Lieutenant McGee and Lieutenant Jones are working on building a calendar formatted just for that, with all the happenings around the city that are
That'd be great.
would be pertinent.
Okay. Fire?
Well, we attended, along with the police department, the 2018 Oktoberfest planning meeting. That should happen the last week of September, I believe, it's scheduled for. From our department, our Fire Inspector DeLosa and Firefighter Cook attended the state fire investigation class and passed both the practical and the written exam. So we have 2 new fire investigators. One's assigned to the Fire Marshal's office. Assistant Fire Marshal Starnes provided training for FAST this month. Fire Records Coordinator Kelly White provided CPR training for the park rangers. This is something the chief is wanting to get more involved in, is training the employees. So we have a meeting this week to discuss training from fire extinguishers, CPR, disaster planning, to reach out to all the employees so they understand what their part is in the program. Development's going on. Stop me if you've heard these before. Watermark Apartments continue to move forward. Parking lot expansion is proposed for Harvest Church. Harvest Church is going to be at the corner of 4th and Winchester on that northwest corner. A parking deck is proposed for Saddle Creek South. That's going to be behind Stony River. Over the, I think we talked about that last month, over the drainage.
Did we?
I thought we
I don't recall that one.
All right, it's going to be built over the drainage ditch back there between Saddle Creek and the Arthur property.
Oh, okay.
Is
Yeah.
that part of the expansion back there?
I don't think it's expansion, much of it is just additional
That's
parking.
neat.
And it's only going to
For employees and for valet.
be, yeah, just kind of ease some of that that's up front. MAA in the Trevere development is moving towards completion. Clint's been working with them, doing the interior inspections.
I think April 13th is the planned move-in date. Wow, so it's really close.
And that's the,
That's their desired date. They still have a lot of work to do.
it's the 5-story office building.
I know, I saw the poles
Did
going
you
across
see
the
that?
road,
Yeah,
and lights, I'm like,
yeah,
great.
new light going up, I
Another
see there
light
now,
on
another light.
All right, that'll like.
Gosh.
Under construction, Germantown Presbyterian Church, the Old Navy store, still working on the interior. Trader Joe's, Thornwood Apartments, Thornwood Mixed Use, Trevere Office Building and Garage, we talked about, and the hotel in the rear of that development is now under construction, in case you didn't have it. Using occupancy permits that were approved this past month, that's 7869 Farmington, Jazzercise. Feel free to stop in. 9076 Proper Pike, Suite 102, Launch Chiropractic, guaranteed to make me another 6 inches taller. And 3133 Forest Hill Irene Road, Suite 109, La Bella Skin Bar.
You can go to Lululemon's and get your
Skin
leotard
bar?
for
I
Jazzercise.
cannot wait.
Skin bar?
Skin bar.
Skin bar.
Skin bar. It will refresh and energize.
That's where you get some more
After you work out and go to the chiropractor.
You go get your skin refreshed. We got you covered in all aspects.
Fires
Fires that occurred over the last month. 1935 Alder Branch. The origin of the fire was in the attic space above the kitchen. The cause of the fire appears to be an electrical short and a recessed light fixture. In 1838 Kimbrough Road, we had a fire, which is the condo on Kimbrough Road. The origin of the fire was again in the attic space, and the cause of the fire still appears to be a short in the outlet that was actually housing the outlet for the HVAC system. So if you remember back in November, we had the same type of fire in that condo. So we're working with the condo association now to get everything we can to kind of do a campus over it about having electricians come out, qualified licensed electricians come out to check the wiring. We're beginning to wonder if it's from the 70s having the aluminum wiring attached to the copper wiring. We can't make it up. We're hoping to hear from some of the homeowners or condo owners soon with that. And that's your monthly report to fire.
That wiring situation, is there a better fix?
You know, there's a couple of questions that we have. One is the size of the wiring that's being used, that the old aluminum wiring seems to be undersized for today's HVAC systems. So we're working with the insurance investigator. They have a lot more resources than we do to determine some of that, and we're waiting to hear back from them. But that's what there is. You know, you have to have a certain type of lube that goes on the wiring, a special wire nut, and if all of those aren't followed, then you can have a loose connection that can cause harm.
Interesting. Jody, what's your opinion of the fire protection in Forest Hill Heights if we don't have that water tower? And you don't have to answer if you don't want to. I'll let Mr. Starnes answer.
Well, I think it's important to have it, and I haven't talked with Bo yet. I know we're running a 12-inch line that way, an additional 12-inch line, and I've asked for with part of the plan review, an engineer, a fire protection engineer, to look at that demand and the potential demand for that.
And we're running a 24-inch line down south of Winchester, right?
Right. But Bo said he's needed that on that end of the town for a while for reserve. So I don't know. I haven't had a chance to sit down with Bo yet to kind of determine what the demand will be.
Is it even a fire protection issue then?
It could be if the water demand for what we're supplying is used, then that reserve will be critical.
I thought a couple of years ago, before the school was ever approved, that was a topic of conversation because of the pressure with all the other construction that was going on at the Winchester Forest Hill area, that they needed some way of getting higher pressures in case there was a structural fire down there. Is that, or
well,
did I dream that?
No, you didn't dream it. We've had conversations with Bo and with the development for a couple of years now about that area. And so I don't have enough information to qualify anything that I'm saying, so this is strictly my opinion. I would love to see it because it's a reserve for us. With what was the subdivision, Garner Woods, that's going in, that we had right at the
first subdivision, once you turn
The Vinings?
Vinings off of Winchester. We did flow test in there in 2016, and for residential areas coming off the city main and not the Memphis main, we were just barely at the needed fire flows for a residential structure. The way the fire code works is it bases the fire flow requirements on your building construction type and the square footage. So it's hard, like the chief was saying, it's hard to say what flows you're going to need down there because we just don't know what we're going to have yet. I mean, you throw a 3-story apartment building that's wood frame that's got 12 units in it, it might need 4,000 gallons versus the next building only needing 2,000 because it's a different size. So there's a chart that we have to go by on that. But it's when we did our flows in that area in 2016, there were some areas where we were getting less than 2,000 gallons a minute of water, which is not a lot.
The new truck, the elevated stream for the truck flows 2,000 gallons a minute.
I don't know if everybody's aware of this, that currently everything south of Poplar in Germantown and an annexed area is actually serviced by MLGW, so they don't even get Germantown water. Not that necessarily affects what your conversation is as part of this, but it's an interesting point. And part of the goal of the city is to take city water and have it flow south Winchester into that new development where the Watermark, and then future developments as well. And so the question has become, do we really need the tower? And that was going to be my second question. Can we accomplish the same thing from a fire perspective with pumps?
Like I said, I don't have the information to qualify the answer. yes, technically you can. Are pumps a long-term answer? They haven't been. For what they're talking about for domestic supply. For commercial building fire pump, yeah, we have to use those. But when you, like what's going to be the sprinkler system and the fire protection system for apartments is a residential system, or it's a 13R. So attic spaces aren't protected, they use plastic pipe. Only a 13R system is designed to allow people to get out, not to protect the actual structure itself. So we have to be careful about how we approve what we approve based on that demand and what we're protecting. Does that make sense?
It does.
So the businesses that are south of Winchester and Forest Hill are actually pulling off the MLG and W?
Right.
Because I thought that was part of the, I always thought that was part of the problem. I didn't realize that. Thank you for clarification.
And Bo has been working diligently for, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, for a long time to get that back on Germantown. To be Germantown, because our water puts out fire a lot better than Memphis water. We had no.
It's cleaner. Wetter.
For a second, I believed that. Judge. That's what's so bad.
It's because we have sparkling water.
Sparkling Perrier most, but I'm
Exactly. Any other questions for fire? Mr. Massey?
Does
Oh,
anybody
go
know
ahead.
anything about MLGW changing out gas meters? They
Oh, yeah.
changed out the,
That's already been done.
is it a big to-do? Big dig?
No, it's 2 minutes and they're done.
meters.
Smart meters.
It's just a meter.
The gas,
Yeah.
like the electric.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just
I've got this great big thing.
You'll still have that.
You'll still
Okay.
have
But
that.
there's a meter that reads it and sends a signal.
I wasn't even home when they did mine. I just came home
Well,
to
they
a car
say
on
you
my
don't
door.
have to be.
I
Okay.
hadn't gotten there
That's
yet.
all, thank you.
If you're worried about
Appreciate it.
signaling your
Anything
health.
on the city?
Yeah, from my report, one thing that I'd like to bring to everybody's attention, there is a group of citizens in town that has started, and this will be the first year, but they've started an organization to try to help our first responders. And right now they're trying to dedicate it exclusively to Germantown first responders. They're having an event on June 16th. They're selling tickets. So if you can share some of this information with your friends and ask them to come to this event, ask them to support this event for our first responders, I would certainly appreciate it. I'll just tell our guys in the room, one of the things that they've been frustrated with is the lack of response from our police and firemen. And I tried to explain that that's a hard group to reach, and it just is. I mean, and so if y'all can help me with that in getting some people involved and responsive to them and attending. I know they're wanting to charge $30, and I told them that's another issue a lot of times. But there may be a way that we can work with them to find people to donate those tickets if we can get people who will commit to attending. But it's a good group. They're working hard, so if we can help them out, I would be very appreciative. So if y'all can take one of those and just pass around, and I'll keep what's left over.
They actually had a float in the parade.
They did have a float in the parade. You're absolutely right. Other than that, we have the same developments. I talked about some of what I was going to mention when we had the discussion about the water tower. So really, I don't know of anything else. There's another subdivision that's going in on Forest Hill Heights, or they're going to try to get approved. It's the Cheatham property. I don't know what it's called yet. I'm not real sure how many housing units they're going to have there. Other than that, I can't really think of anything.
And I'm sorry, if I can take a step back. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah.
I think you covered it. We did briefly talk about the Cheatham property. It's, I think, one lot north of Winchester on Forest Hill and Ring that they're looking to subdivide. We were talking about that this morning. I think it's still in the very early stages. I think there's still kind of a concept that it's.
Would you speak to what you mentioned at the FAST meeting about the new, did you not mention there's going to be some new system of calling out like the fire reserves, because I found that interesting. I've been meaning to talk to you about this.
Chief Saunders, our administrative chief, is looking at it's a app for your phones, but it's a program called Code Red that they can program different phone numbers and different groups in, so that our organizations or volunteers, sometimes even our command staff, a lot of times, right now we're relying, if there's a fire at night, for the dispatchers to pick up the phone, and they're having to call Chief Dwyer, they're having to call me, they're calling Chief Selberg down the list, and sometimes one or two names get overlooked. And that's how, like on one of the fires, I came in at 7 in the morning to the fire station. They're like, "Where were you at last night?" They were all tired. I was like, "I was in bed." Nobody ever called me. But this app is a way to, you can set up different email addresses, you can set up phone numbers in, and it's a one button call, if you would. The dispatcher would be able to hit one button, and it would call out to the entire group and say, there's a fire coming in, or if like the fast group needed to be activated, it would call all of the fast group members, and it would just send out a mass text or a robocall, if you would, saying respond in to this, instead of having to rely on one person to.
We've had situations with the police reserves where an electrical pole is about to fall over on Germantown Parkway, and they're calling the squad leaders to call our guys to see if we can get somebody calling out. So I was thinking this might be something that, if it's through dispatch, maybe they could hook it up for the police reserves. I don't know.
We're looking at some of those programs, and we've tried a couple of them in the past, and they haven't been reliable. Hopefully this one, we're trying to vet it now and
Cool.
to make sure.
Because when I started, we had pagers, and those went away. So.
My previous assignment was over the SWAT team, and so we tried some of the other applications, and that way we wouldn't have to call individually and have less than success. So hopefully this one.
Well, Chief Saunders knows he's handling that side from the fire side of it, so he knows a lot more than I do about it.
I'll give a Captain Taylor, and I'll be able to give you guys a better report.
I think that's it, Al, unless I missed one of the developments that's coming on. I know I didn't bring any up, but I don't think we've had anything that's really come online over the past 2 weeks.
Everything that we've had has just been the parking deck and the parking lot expansion. That's what's on my interest.
Okay. Before we go to new business, I just wanted to address the email, and I really appreciate those of you who replied. There was a lot of vigor. A lot of, hey, what if we do blah, 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 and I think that's great. I did want to address, I want to choose my words carefully. Going back to education, I think what we need to do is find the chain of command that would go through, because we can't set, I know one of the suggestions was, can we look in addressing the speed limits and things like that. That doesn't come under us. That would be under Tim Watney over in
Engineer, traffic engineer.
If I can address the
Please.
email for just a second.
Sure.
On the speed limit. So one of the things, the police, we can input data, but the traffic engineer, they set speed limits, they design roadways and that kind of thing. So when I received the emails last week, one of the things I did is I had patrol make sure that they did some directed enforcement in that area. They spent 6 hours watching over the weekend, watching the roadways over there in the Dogwood Creek South Homeowner Association, and no citations were written. One ticket was written. They couldn't find anyone violating the laws. However, that's not saying there wasn't a problem. They noticed there was a very high rate as in speed, but a high volume of traffic. That it appears that people are using that street as a cut through from Poplar Pike to Poplar. Also, I got with Mr. Gwaltney today, with what we found out. And what it looks like is we probably do need to initiate a traffic study and look at some different ideas on how we can remedy the situation. He had some ideas, but until he gets the data to do something that would actually make the effect the residents want, he didn't want to go public with anything, if that makes sense. But he has some ideas on traffic calming, making it where there's other avenues that would be more likely where people wouldn't cut through the neighborhood. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes good sense. If we are an education commission, I think one of the best things we could do would be to start educating the public as to just what these speed limits are within. In other words, start blitzing them with the speed limit is 30, the speed limit is 30.
Here's my concern. There's a gentleman who lives, just a moment. There's a gentleman in my area who every day is out there going like that. And I just want to pull over and say, the speed limit's 30. I was doing 25.
Well, that's the thing.
So unfortunately, some people are hypersensitive because, I get it, young kids, they don't want people flying down their street. But to the untrained eye, 30 and 35 or 25 is like light years apart. That's my concern here, is people emailing aldermen and whatnot saying, you need to fix this. That's the process of fixing it, though, is traffic studies. Okay? I'll let you continue, but
Thank you.
But I just want to make that clear. Not everybody who says there's people flying down my street, they don't always know what they're talking about, is my point.
I'm as guilty as anybody as having a heavy foot, and I'll admit that. But I think as part of, they haven't caught me yet, only once. We're an education commission, okay? Let's start blitzing the community with the fact that the speed limits right now are 30 in all of the residential areas.
That's not true.
25.
It's not true.
That's not true.
But
No, there's some 25s.
There's some 25s.
There's some 25s.
What are they?
Well, it's 35 unless it's posted, right?
Eddie Smith is 20.
30.
30.
and it's 25 on Scruggs. So we
Yeah.
had the complaint before, and so the traffic engineer revisited it, did traffic studies, and it felt that it justified reducing the speed to 5 miles an hour due to some of the volume and other factors. Again, we probably need to get the data to see what would be the best solution, so we don't just throw stuff at the wall. But on the other hand, I think there's probably good work to be done as far as to tell people to be cognizant of their speed. But more, I know speed is a factor, but more the crashes that we see, distracted driving, people on phones, things of that nature. And so if we have people going 20 miles an hour not paying attention, far more deadly than someone going 30. So.
Well, I go back to my original comment that if we educate people, or at least they can never say they haven't been told, if we start a campaign possibly to, even after your study, to let people know just what, I love the sign that the guy on, as you turn off of Scruggs onto Hacks Cross, drive as though your children live here.
But a safe driving campaign is where.
Yeah, a safe driving campaign, right, exactly. Just educate folks. My daughter got stopped on Dogwood one day because the speed limit in school zones in Birmingham is different from the speed limits on Dogwood. And she got stopped. Well,
But it goes back to, we need to know what the issue is in order to educate on the issue.
Or people need to
A
be
blanket,
educated.
here's the speed limit,
Right.
it might not be what we need. That's what I'm trying to
I agree
get
with you.
across.
I'm
So
confirming that. Affirming.
we'll be on hold on that.
So here's my comments on the issue. The fact that we are having a discussion where diverse opinions are being expressed by multiple sides tells me that it's something that is something that it could be discussed as part of our Public Safety Education Commission. I think it does fall within our purview. I think we should continue to raise these issues because Germantown prides itself on being run by citizen commissions. Well, if that's the case and we're the Public Safety Education Commission, we need to talk about these issues. Now, whether we as a commission make a recommendation or you simply tell me as your alderman liaison that this is your opinion, and then I use that information, such as the emails that I received from some of you, to form my opinion and my arguments before the Board of Mayor and Alderman. I still think it's worthwhile because we as your elected representatives should be getting our direction from you as the citizens. And so I tried to select the members of this commission based on your experience, and I tried to choose members with prior law enforcement experience, fire experience, or some other relationship to what our purpose is. And if our purpose isn't to focus on things like this, then I'm not sure that we have to necessarily have backgrounds like that. So I'd like to put some of it to use personally and see if I can't provide some better guidance to our commissions. That's all I'm trying to do with the data from the crime statistics too. We don't have to make formal recommendations. We don't have to have formal votes, but I still think it's worthwhile for us to at least have the discussions as a commission and me get some input from other citizens. So the speed limit thing, I don't know if y'all understand how that got brought up. A group of citizens just sent a blast email to the BMA. So my response was, it's really not something that would normally be addressed by a single alderman, so there's not a lot that I can do individually. I said, but I am the liaison to the Public Safety Education Commission, so I tell you what I'll do. I'll see if I can get some feedback from the members of my Public Safety Education Commission. And that's when I sent out the emails to you guys. Something we do have to be cautious about, though, is having those discussions in email form. We're probably required to have those discussions at our meetings, but there's nothing wrong with it. If you hear something in your neighborhood that you want discussed here, to send that to the commission members and say, I'd like to have this put on the agenda at some point in the future. But to your point, Al, we don't have to vote on things. We don't have to make a recommendation to police, for example. And we're not trying to tell police what to do. Really, this is more for me and more from a legislative perspective than anything else. So that's really...
All of you guys are bosses, and so any of you have the authority to call us up and say, hey, there's people driving too fast up and down my street, or there's criminal activity, I think, so-and-so. We encourage it. We want that. And we will, Tennessee has very, very good Freedom of Information Act laws. We will share everything we possibly can as long as it doesn't compromise someone else's personal information. And so we want to do what you guys want us to do. We want to be receptive to that. We want to be listening to what you're telling us to do. And that's what we want to do. We want to be as helpful as we possibly can. And so we appreciate any input you can give us. And so, and we will share, we're not NASA or anything like that, so there's very little that we have that we can't share. So most of everything we have is not law enforcement sensitive.
Except for an active investigation.
Yeah, but that's it's a pretty rare.
I've got a question. The unit you move around that shows the speed somebody's driving.
The radar trailer?
Yeah. Does that record data? Like if somebody, speed limit is 30 and somebody hits it, picks them up over 35, it doesn't clock it.
The current one we have does not. We are trying to budget. Those are pretty expensive.
Yeah.
The ones like what you're talking about. And so we're trying to work into our budget to purchase an additional one. And we want to get the one that does do what
Right,
say.
because that'll collect
Works.
data, we can,
Right.
hard data we can work with.
And so for that kind of deal, we can see, so between these hours, we're getting this much traffic, we're getting this many violations, and that way, because we have a limited amount of resources, and it can help us better say, well, at rush hour every day on this neighborhood, we're having a lot of speeding, so it can help us to better deploy the focus and resources we have.
Are you looking at those that come, it's kind of a, you attach it to a pole, a tree, or whatever, so you don't have to cart that
No,
speed limit thing around,
actually,
each time?
it's another trailer, and the reason is, and from what I haven't personally looked at them, but my understanding from the guys that have is that time you attach it to something else, it's easier to have just pulled one out there and come back to it.
That way you can reallocate it as you need it
Yeah.
versus having.
Where have you?
No, the other one's
attach it.
mobile too.
It
It just
is,
matters.
but
They are.
Yeah.
and I'm not sure how the attachment works, and so that's something I'll look into.
We do have still, do we not, in the city, the strips that they run across the roads that are
That's
basically,
traffic engineer has.
where they count the traffic.
Those counters are they can speed too.
I think-
Most of those do not. Some of them have the
50 counters.
capability, but I don't think Tim's does.
Those counters.
I think they were just counters, yeah.
I think so,
Because,
too.
we were just talking sidebar, Jonathan,
Smith.
Smith used to come to the meetings. I was wondering if maybe we could reach out to Tim to possibly start attending, because Jonathan was the traffic engineer for a couple of years. I just
He
don't
could
know
at
what his
least
scheduling
make-
was like.
Guest appearances when there was something that was going to be.
I'll reach out to him and see if we can get him in a meeting. And he can answer some more in depth.
I don't
about
have
how
a
they
question,
do
but
that.
I got a comment to make. Because this is an education commission on public safety, one of the things that I'm going to take back to English Meadows, which we have some pretty open streets in there, is that we're going to put this information out about speeding to in our newsletter that we send out once a month, and also we have a Facebook page, and we also utilize that and the next door. And so I have been educated on this, and I'm going to pass it on to our board tonight. In fact, I got to leave here in just a few minutes to make a 6:30 meeting.
That's what I meant by getting the information out
Absolutely.
to the public. And we can put it in newspapers and through the neighborhood center, not centers, associations and
Yeah.
the schools, and we can work up something for Safety City to send home with the kids in big red letters or something. There's this commission, if we're going to educate, we need to educate.
But we need to know what we're going to educate on is my
Gotcha.
point, Betty.
But right now, we
Obey the
educate on
speed
what we
laws.
have.
And let me say something else. One reason that it is important to have the citizens do it is because if you allow I'm just going to say it this way, if you allow the politicians to control the information flow, they will eventually manipulate it for their own political benefit.
Amen.
And so that's why it's
Okay,
important
we're
to have
moving on.
everything in.
We're moving on. We're getting into politics. We're not going to get into politics.
No, Al,
in this
that's
committee. No,
about
No, I'm
the
stopping you
commission.
right now. I'm the chairman of this commission. You are a liaison. I have the right to shut you down right there. We're not going to talk politics. We're moving on. And if you don't think I do, we can have a conversation after this. Because I can assure
Well,
you.
Chair, you're
I've
out of
already
order,
invested.
first of all.
You
You
are
need to-
completely
you-
out of order, sir.
Take
We're
a
moving
minute
on.
and get yourself back in order.
No, I'm shutting you down. We're not talking politics in this commission. Moving on. You had an odd thing you wanted to present for new
Well,
business.
based on, for new business, my initial comment was centered on the crime statistic proposal. I think the motion I'll put before our commission or the council is sort of a two-pronged one based on the continued discussion about the traffic studies. So my point is, or my proposal is, we have an agenda that we set for ourselves at the beginning of the year that centers around the activities that we have about every 2 or 3 months, be it starting with a float and drug take back, and so there are activities that we're being asked to volunteer for, and everyone kind of budgets their time around that, and it has a sort of focus and agenda. And now we've developed a couple of different themes, one being around maybe some increased crime focus, another being around some increased traffic safety focus. And I would just like to ensure that the members of the commission have a chance to voice a preference for how we would go about either addressing those new themes or maybe tabling them or ignoring them. You know, we get that choice to say, well, we have our plate full with drug take back, which is not true, our plate's not full, but we're going to do that. We do, the safety city is kind of a plate full type thing that requires a little bit of muscle movement. So to the point that the alderman brought before us regarding crime statistics, I think we've nibbled around the edges in terms of some existing platforms that provide us with a venue for determining whether there's an issue to put out, and then the point you made about pushing out information. We have also talked about the Germantown community page, the next door neighbor application. So there are some platforms by which this commission can take action, and it's fairly not with very small effort. But I think before we even do that, we need to, as a group, decide, is that in our purview? We've nibbled around the edges of that tonight as well. Is this something we do? And then, do we want to take it on? So, in simple terms, the motion I have is for us to decide either tonight or at a future meeting for, I guess, old business, even a voice vote on each of those issues. Do we want to expand our purview in terms of how we educate about crime statistics? And that method might be we want the police to bring forward X number of charts or this specific thing. So do we want that? And the second thing that I think we should discuss is how do we educate about traffic safety? So there's the motion. For this meeting or next meeting, the council vote on, do we want to do this?
I second the motion.
Can we have do this
Discussion.
discussion?
Yep.
I'm thinking, we've learned tonight that there is statistics categorized by the type of crimes.
Sure.
They can float between one bucket to the other. But I think when we got that data and we saw an opportunity to educate the public, if we had key bobs and break into vehicles, and that's a high on this list, bar graph or whatever, then maybe we could educate on that. But if we could drill down in each of those crime statistics, and we could pick like the one or two top ones every year, we can present it if we have something at the festival, or we can send out and communicate to them. Speeding, I'd like to see the breakdown. If, of course, I know it's hard to catch them, but if somebody's on their phone texting or whatever, I mean, that's stuff. If we can get that data,
Like a threat assessment.
stratify the data. But we take the biggest data for one category and stratify it and look and see if we can do education. If not, we just move down the line.
I'm just afraid we can get diverted. We can divert our attention and our efforts into the next shiny thing. You know, they're in general, the big umbrella of public safety.
Right.
We need to figure out which certain things, given the fact that we already have a structure during the year that we're already focusing every year on Safety City for 5 and 6 and 7 years old. You know, there's a certain structure we have that we all address. What beyond that do we want to take on, need to take on, and how? And so that should be something that we don't just sit in the meeting and listen to Al tell us, okay, we're going to do this now. Well, let's talk about it. Do we really
And how
want to?
does it
Should
do
we? And so
that?
forth.
We have what? We have Safety City.
Sure.
Drug take back twice a year. Car safety seat.
Yep.
Check. We do Germantown Night Out.
Yep.
Festival.
We do the festival.
Yep.
So we have
Right.
5
John
things
does
that we
that. That's
do.
fine.
John does that. We have 5 events that we help with
Yeah.
a year. Well,
Float.
5 different ones.
Yeah.
Some of them we do multiple times. Okay. That's the biggest one is going to be Safety City. It takes the lion's share of the time. But the other ones aren't that time engulfing.
Clearly.
So, to your point, we have spare time to look into
Yeah.
doing all these other
Right.
things.
It's
I just think it should be a group decision.
Right.
We all
A group-
volunteered for X. Do we want
Right.
to take on Y and Z? And if so, is it right? And how do we do it?
Right,
That's
because we spend time talking about the festival and pick out a topic, out of the sky blue gun control, whatever. Maybe we use the data, take the biggest thing and see if we can use that information just for that festival, that one piece of information about this crime statistic. But I agree with you, we can't tackle all the issues. But
We could, but we might be less effective.
yeah, we're less effective. We just need to pick something we can deal with and be very effective in the education of the public.
Yeah.
And
I do-
education of me too. I mean, y'all are educating me when I'm in the room. And, you know, I take that back, and that becomes part of the debate as part of the legislative process. So yes, it's educating the public, but you're also educating me, and then I'm trying to take that information and educate the public too. So whether you vote on an issue or not, the fact that y'all have these discussions helps me tremendously.
Good. Okay, well, thank you.
Any other discussion?
Any discussion? Betty, any discussion?
No?
No.
So the motion, can you read the motion back?
It's a long, there's
You
two
netted
words.
it down though. It's 4 paragraphs.
One sentence, do we want to expand
One
our purview
sentence.
on crime and traffic safety?
Yeah, that really was kind of, we've
I'm
had
gonna-
2
I'm
new
relying
subjects
on
that have
that.
come up, an increased data poll on crime, and then what would we do with that data? And then we also have, how do we respond to potential public concern over, and we can't just respond to, it's one person in one neighborhood, but if there's a more general concern about traffic safety, is that something we should address? So I guess the motion is for us to discuss it. I think we just did. So I don't know if we came up with any motions to do anything about it.
I think we need to carry that over.
Okay.
I think, because that's a very broad.
It is?
We need
what
some
you
more
threw out.
information and then go from there.
What you threw out was a very broad
He kind of fine-tuned it.
proposal. So why don't we,
Okay, let me refine the motion. May I?
okay.
I propose next meeting we vote on whether or not we will increase our outreach regarding crimes by asking for more data. Like, police bring us more data, and we're going to go do something with it every time.
I thought we were doing that though.
Yeah. Okay, are we?
I thought that was the conversation that
Yeah. Then we're doing what I want to do.
I mean,
Yeah.
do we need an emotion? If we do, we can do an emotion.
I retract the motion.
I'm not. Sure?
Yes. Really, the discussion was what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And I don't think I retract the motion.
Okay.
Just every other.
The second motion or the first motion? The second motion.
The whole
Second
thing.
motion.
Second motion. First motion, so good. All right. We need to gather some information and then see what we can even do with
I
it.
don't know if I can even read that.
Okay.
All right.
So
Cool.
basically, we're going to talk about the first motion.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. That's,
At the next
because
meeting.
none of us want to take more hours on to look at this stuff, but if it's, we need to probably maybe, well, we'll talk about it
Well,
next meeting.
That's it, that's it, that's it.
Okay.
Maybe you could provide some of the data to us, see what we would be looking at? You know,
Well,
the
when you guys
analysis
were talking,
quickly.
that kind of got my ear just a little bit. And what the fire department does, the report that they do, as much as it pains me to say it, it's really good. And
Oh, we're done here. You're gonna leave on a high note, right?
so plagiarism is pretty much how I got to college, but no, anyway. So we could plagiarize their format. And so what we can work together here, and so again, we can kind of use their format. And so some of the crimes that you guys would probably want to know: murder, manslaughter,
That's against the fire code.
kidnapping, forceful rape. These are the crimes that are listed on the. And I think you have access to this, Mr. Massey, but I don't think the rest of the agency would have this. But aggravated assault, simple assaults, violent crimes, basically. We can give you how many violent crimes and kind of where they happened at. And then we have property crimes, which is like our car break-ins and things like that. And we can give you the number and the area that they're happening in. Would that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be a good start.
Yeah, I think
would
the
that fulfill
intent.
what y'all want to
Yeah.
do?
I think the intent was to say, car burglaries. There seems to be a lot of car burglaries in this part of town. How do we educate people over there? Maybe it's Saddle Creek. Then we're blitzing the entire community again about, hey, don't leave your packages laying in your seat
So we could
over the
narrow
holidays.
our
But
focus on a particular
Yeah.
area that's being hit hard.
I think that was pretty much the intent. you know, so we could,
But how much time we're going to eat up in the 1 hour of looking at all this data, so we'll have that discussion
Well,
next
we'll
week.
have it.
You'll have it so we can see what we're going to deal
Kind
with.
of as a,
Right.
like a zip file, so it's
Yeah.
easy.
What will probably happen is you'll give us that data, and we'll have it at the meeting, then we'll take it home, and at the next meeting, if there's questions about that data, there'll be a discussion.
Good idea.
right,
Or
right.
We can email
you don't have to wait till the next meeting.
Or email before the meeting.
Well, yeah, that'd be good.
Well, to the Alderman's point about process, I think I enjoyed the email discussion that we had. Perhaps we should submit those emails to the record to say this is a deliberation that the council went under. That's probably, I don't know if that's appropriate or not. I think our business gets conducted during this time frame when we're adjourned, when we're convened. But deliberation as council members by ourselves would be, but to come back and discuss it in this forum would be.
My concern is, I was going to reply back, thank you for bringing this, we can have a conversation at the meeting, but by the time, because I can read them on my phone, I don't like replying on my phone, because I have fat fingers. But by the time I got home, there was like 3 people had already replied,
Yeah.
and at that point, I was like, I'll just talk about it at the meeting. I don't want, because Alderman Massey did point out, we need to be careful about what we put in writing
Sure.
regarding these kinds of things, especially since he's included and they're included, and that the whole Freedom of Information Act and everything. I'd rather have a verbal conversation. We have minutes that are open for anybody. Anybody can come sit in this meeting. We can have a lively discussion. But when we start pontificating on via email, we can get out of control. And I just wanted to try to keep it.
Well, and
Maybe
it,
sometimes it's not, when we're talking like this, there's a lot of cues that my body language and other things, you can maybe tell what I'm trying to say, that I'm not as articulate enough to put in words.
Sure.
And so you get the message more clearly when we're face to face.
well, and the other thing, if we're deliberating on things, the public's supposed to know all the information that we used as part of our deliberations, and so that's the other reason for having it. And nobody did anything wrong. I don't think there are any deliberations that took place, but I do want to be cautious about that so that the record is available to the public to see. So that's really what we're trying to do.
But actually, my phone is in my pocket, the computer on my desk, there's nothing, I have no right of privacy to any of that. It's all the cities, anyone can see all of it. So if it comes to the department, it's completely open to everyone.
Yeah, but mine is private, and if
Right.
I have a discussion,
Yeah, right.
if I have a discussion that results in our commission taxing your resources, and that discussion happened offline, that's not appropriate. So if we were to have a private discussion amongst
Yeah, that's
ourselves,
exactly.
we want 3 police officers on the corner 3 days a week, and you respond to that, then that's inappropriate, because that would have been done outside the rest of the package.
Right.
So,
Right.
I deleted mine and didn't say anything.
Okay. All
I
right.
figured we'd talk about it later too.
Yeah.
Dead horse?
All right. Any announcements? Ed? Joe?
Clint's going to be taking my place on the commission for a little while, but just because responsibilities have changed and we have someone to do it, so we're shifting a little bit.
Okay.
But I'm still very,
You'll bring the comedic
just a retirement plan.
dialogue in your place then?
Yes.
Right, you'll bring the
Can
comedic
hold us
dialogue.
on.
Okay. Anything else? Mr.
Motion
Massey?
adjourned?
No, I think that's it. So you're not going to be here anymore, Joe, is what you're saying?
Not forever, but just, well,
Temporarily.
yeah, some of the responsibilities have shifted as far as commission meetings go, so we're just shifting them.
Okay.
Who made that decision? I'm just curious.
Just me.
Why?
Just
You
me in the
did?
office, yeah.
Okay.
Spread the resources that you've got a little bit easier.
Yes,
He's a very capable man.
yes.
We miss you.
You tutelaged him well.
Thanks.
You've taught him well.
Move to adjourn.
All right. I have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned.
Thank you all for letting me be
Thanks,
here.
everybody.
No problem.
Don't forget the fundraiser.
Yes, right there.
Everything, but the second I hear politicians, I'm shutting it down. I do not want that in here. I'm sorry,
But,
but we're not.
That wasn't politics, though. I'm a politician. I was talking about myself.
I don't
You
want,
can't-
no, you're a liaison at this point. You might be holding office, no.